That's a good camera.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
What are you guys, like 20s something?
No,
20?
18.
I'm 23.
That's so awesome. You're so lucky.
Oh, man. It's so fun.
We're live! Yay! Okay, hey everyone. My name is Elizabeth. Well, I go by Ellie, and welcome to the 180 Shift podcast. And my co-host.
I'm Tara. Happy to be here.
How have you been doing?
I'm good. I'm here all the time, so I don't know. Anyway, back to Ellie.
You're like, I'm here all the time.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
No, it's all good. And we are joined by another lovely guest. I mean, last week we had a little bit of a change. It's a little random, I think, but it was really good.
Yeah.
I liked it, right?
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was a whole entire panel. Hopefully we'll do it again. But
yes.
We do have another great guest on today, and Amie. Hi, welcome on.
Hi, thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm good. This is a really nice space.
Oh, thank you. It's morphed a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so
It's
much for
transitioning.
joining us. Yes,
Yes,
it
it
is. Transition.
Now, we do want to do the boba before we get
Let's
into
do
it.
it. Oh, yes,
So
okay.
let's get that done because we forgot last time. So
Yes.
let's do this.
Also, I want to show you a boba trick. You hold it like this with your two fingers. Hold the boba like that, and then you just tap it like that.
Wow. Okay,
It's-
well,
It's science.
I still like to stab it. It's more fun that way, okay? No.
Cheers, baby.
Cheers.
Thank you.
with
I'm
the
not sure how
bon
much
bon boba.
percentage we got on both of you. Like,
There we go. Okay.
hopefully it's not too, like, watered down. You know?
This is so fun.
Mm-hmm. It's delicious.
Hi, Brian.
You everybody. Oh, that's so cute. First,
All right.
thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everyone,
We
for
just had
joining us.
a short little break to drink the boba.
Now-
Boba's so good.
Yes, it really is.
Okay,
Do we want Amie to give?
I think so.
Yeah,
I did
quick
read
in-
up on your
Yeah.
organization that you're one of the founders of. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about it so we get the summary, but we'll also we'll dive into it as we go. But just give us a quick summary about what it is, what you do.
Okay, well, my organization is called Woman to Woman. I'm a founding member and the executive director, and I'm formerly incarcerated, and we serve the community of women in prison, transitioning out of prison, and those who are already established or trying to get established out here. I think collectively between the three of us, we have about 50 years behind bars together.
Oh.
Not individually, but collectively.
Yeah.
It started in 2019 or 20, maybe 2020. There's just a need for resource sharing. There are limited resources that are available, but unless you are connected, it's kind of hard to access them. So I wanted to act as a resource hub and connect women with the most appropriate resources, and there aren't very many now.
Right.
Looking at the bigger picture, and in the process of establishing the organization, we started doing a lot of advocacy because we had kind of an emergency, and that's when we established the lawsuit against some legislation that
What was the emergency?
in January of 2021, SB 132, the Transgender Respect Agency and Dignity Act, started implementation. And that's when people started transferring from the men's facilities. And that definitely wasn't the group of people that women were prepared for. It was fully intact, male-presenting individuals, of whom 33.8% are registered sex offenders. So,
Wow.
So biological men entering women's prisons,
that's right.
and we don't hear about it.
Right.
No,
And they haven't even transitioned, right?
there's no requirement for physical transition, for hormone replacement, for anything other than
Right.
self-ID.
Do we
Okay.
know what they define self-ID as?
just an independent declaration that you're a woman.
So a man who has full intention to harm the women inside the prison could just say, I'm a woman, and then he could be transferred to a women's prison. Wow.
Yes.
And you said 33% are registered sex offenders?
Yes.
Wow.
Meaning registered, meaning this is their second, not their first round, not their first rodeo. They've, had to, this is like at least their second case where it has been a sex crime.
They're not first-time offenders.
Well,
yeah.
that is definitely something to take into consideration.
Yeah.
And the fact that many of these men are now going over to women's prisons, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, we are here tonight to shed the light on this issue because I didn't hear about it until I talked to you, Amie.
And that's something that I did want to touch on real quickly is no media coverage about any of this.
Not mainstream, no. None of the mainstream outlets will touch it. There's, more conservative outlets. Fox News has been really generous lately. But as far as mainstream media, it's definitely just dead silence.
Why do you think that is?
I think that there's a lot of effort being invested in not bringing any negative attention to the trans community. And it's really damaging for everybody because it's a complete misrepresentation of the general community members. They're not. This is the extremist end of something. It's not an adequate, accurate representation. The trans women that are in men's prison are like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We don't want to go over there, and this is not us. This is not what we want. We don't want to go over there. The people that are transferring are predators for the most part.
Wow. So they don't want to go over there to the women's prison?
No, and there's a huge misconception. There's a big narrative that is being created that there's this crisis of sexual assault. Yes, there's sexual assault in every single prison. Anywhere people are in cages, there's going to be some issues. But as far as, people waking up and being, raped as soon as, they open their eyes, that's not what's going on. There's people in long-term relationships that don't want to transfer. There's better programming at their facilities. There's people that are surviving and thriving in certain facilities. And the misconception is just, widespread misinformation.
Yeah. What is some of that misinformation?
Well, that, they're getting raped. Well, can I say that? That,
yeah,
they're getting SA'd, sorry.
Yes.
Every 5 seconds. It's not the case. It's not the case.
At the male prison. Mm-hmm. So the people who identify as a woman, even though they're a biological male, they are not actually getting, SA'd or sexually assaulted or R-worded, whatever, at the male's prison, but that's the reason, the justification that they're being transferred to women's prisons left and right.
I mean, it exists. It's still confusing because it does exist, and there are some situations that are horrible, but this happens everywhere. So what they're doing is instead of dealing with the problem in the men's facility and addressing it here and, looking into those issues, they're just taking this toxic problem and spreading it around and making it women's problem to take care of. Yeah, they're making a decision about the greater good, and the women are low on the totem list or on the totem pole or whatever you did. Because generally, the female population is not going to file lawsuits. They don't advocate for themselves the same way that people at the men's facilities do.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, you do a lot of advocacy, I'm hearing, but are you seeing any help from, the government? Are they realizing that this is an issue and going to address it?
Recently, actually, there was a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing because Biden nominated some very interesting judges for lifetime positions in federal courts. And there is a magistrate judge named Sarah Netburn, and she ruled to send intact male-bodied individual to a women's prison in Texas, and this person was a sex offender, SA'd 9-year-old, a 17-year-old, and then it was in possession of really serious child stuff.
Oh my Lord.
And she did a lot of research, like 48 pages of research, to justify her decision to have this person transferred to a women's facility. And what happened is that, surprisingly, the Senate minority just went in on her. Like, what planet are you from? How could you do this? Do the women not have any rights? Are you crazy?
Yeah.
They really went ham. So
one thing that I do wonder is why, if somebody who has done such terrible things, why do they get a decision to do this? Like,
it's like a predator prioritization agenda.
I guess ask Sarah Nedburn. Is that her name?
Yes.
And the person who appointed her, Biden.
But she hasn't been affirmed yet. They're not going to vote until July 11th now, because there's been so much blowback that they've canceled her markup twice.
Yeah.
Well, and then we just got a question. Are women sharing sleeping quarters with trans women?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
And in California, the largest women's prison we have, there's 8-person cells. So there's 4 bunks, a toilet, 2 sinks, a shower, and maybe 6 feet to share per bunk area.
So the women are being subjected to a man also just using the bathroom in front of them.
Wow.
And the shower system, everything was designed. This is specifically a women's prison, so there's a steel door with cutouts, very large cutouts. But when you're 6 feet tall, it's just you see directly in there. There is no privacy.
Yeah.
There's already no privacy. It's prison. You know, nobody really expects to have a honeymoon suite or anything. But sharing 6 feet of living space with, you know, a serial rapist is really abusive when you take into consideration that 92% of incarcerated women are survivors of some kind of sexual trauma.
Yeah. It's very interesting, too, because, you know, there might even be an approach from people like, you know, Sarah Nordblum, right? Is that her name? Yeah, something like that. I want to draw attention to her because, it's important to know that Biden is literally putting this stuff into action. And so it's interesting, too, because one of her justifications might be, well, you know, they got to get over it. The women got to get over it, right? Because they're in prison and this is what they get for being in prison. But then it's like, well, then why don't you have that same, why don't they have that same perspective on the men who identify as a woman? Why don't they say, oh, you identify as a woman? Okay, you're still going to stay in men's prison. Why? Because they said that it would...
They would be subjected to the most horrible abuse, and they have a 14% higher rate of being SA'd. I don't know where those statistics came from. It's like a hot topic. Everybody likes to throw that number out there, but I'm pretty sure that the statistics were gathered from people in and out of prison by these NGOs that are really GOs.
Yeah.
And it's super biased. I mean, everybody must have read that book, you know, How to Lie with Statistics. That's what's really popping right now. And this, you know, I'm in contact with women in multiple prisons. So the prison where this individual was sent, that person's now in SHU. They're in the hole for continually exposing themselves to the female prisoners.
Oh, my goodness.
So Netburn also stated that the women's fears were overblown and unfounded in anything factual, because this person is chemically or hormonally completely female. I don't really know what that means, but it obviously was not really a good idea. This person is already in a maximum security segregated area because of their behavior.
Yeah.
But she said that there was no proof that this person would be a danger to the population. And Senator Cruz, Kennedy, a couple others, they went in and they told her, what do you mean there's no reason to believe the person would reoffend? It's pretty obvious that this person did and will, because every time they get an opportunity to, they do hurt people a lot. So...
Yeah, that's why they're in there. Yeah, that's interesting, too. There's kind of a definition slip in there, which is, they said this person is hormonally female, right? So they've now expressed their definition of a woman, which is
a
hormone. So, like, I guess we got our answer. What is a woman?
It's a hormone level.
It's a hormone level.
You gotta have this much.
But this is all socioeconomic experimentation. This is what's going to happen. Once they get the timeline done for this project, they're going to just start forcing it on us in the free world, which is why, I'm trying so hard to stop it now, because we're not equipped out here to deal with the level of erasure and abuse that's happening inside.
So you're saying that they would be like preparing, right? So almost like a little
Practice
mini, an experimentation. That's interesting. Have you seen that with any other stuff that they've been doing in prisons?
Oh gosh, medical testing. Like right now, well, when I was in, everybody was on, Lexapro.
Yeah.
Including myself.
Yeah.
I was like, well, this summer I'll get on Lexapro. And, I wanted to get on medication so I wouldn't have to be transferred. Because if you were on medication, they wouldn't transfer you to another prison. So I was like, I might need medicine. So I got on it, and I started talking like Mickey Mouse. So some of the older ladies were like, you're going to get off of that medicine right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, why? Why would I? What's wrong? So I did. Yeah. But right now, what's currently trending is Suboxone, which is an opioid blocker. And it's being used in their medical assisted, it's the MAT. It's medication assisted something. It's a program for drug rehabilitation that you can participate inside, get, I think, credits for towards your sentence for an early release. But there's people who have never had an opioid problem that are now addicted to the opioid blocker.
What is an opioid blocker?
Say you're addicted to heroin or I don't know, another opioid, whatever.
Like fentanyl, or is that an opiate?
So.
Yeah, something like that. Oxy.
So what it blocks is your body's ability to get loaded. So nobody fully understands. You're not going to get high. So if you're on the Suboxone, but somebody comes to the room with some heroin, you're just going to keep getting high because you can't tell if you're getting high, and then you OD and die. But luckily, the Department of Corrections handed out Narcan to every single incarcerated individual last week. Instead of, trying to get the drug problem under control, they just want you to go ahead and keep getting high, but don't die, because then you're not worth any money if you're dead.
That was the same thing that when we went to the GOP a few weeks ago, and we were in San Francisco, and surprisingly, there, it was very clean. Like they've cleaned it up this year. Not exactly sure how, but we were talking to some homeless people, and they were talking about how much Narcan the government is just giving them. Yeah. And I guess maybe that's how they're solving the homeless issue too, is just...
And I think Newsom announced that he wants it to be manufactured here as well. So that's how the drug problem will be solved, just by curing overdoses.
Curing overdoses until the body can only handle so many overdoses. Like some of the homeless people I talked to, they looked like they were like, approaching 50. It's like, how many overdoses is your body going to handle before you just collapse,
Right. The body can only take so much.
Yeah.
It's not meant for that. But sort of talking about, I guess, experimentation or things like that, we were also mentioning how many of the women are sort of seen lesser than in the system. And I was wondering, are we seeing eugenics currently in the prison systems today?
It's not widely reported, but a few years ago, Dr. Heinrich was caught giving uninformed hysterectomies without, informed consent to several women. I think there's at least 200 that they're aware of. Newsom allocated, I think, $7 million to compensate the survivors. And I think that was somehow whittled down to about $3 million. And they just spent, I want to say, maybe $1 million on plaques to commemorate the reproductive systems of the survivors in front of the prisons. Each woman got $35,000 for her reproductive system. The doctor never had to apologize. It's pretty dehumanizing. He said he was doing the state a favor. He was saving the money. It's pretty gory. It's kind of a nightmare.
So I'm confused. Did he buy their reproductive system, or is just paying them like, I'm sorry you lost it?
That I wouldn't be surprised if it was sold.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
That, he would tell somebody, you have a cyst, we're going to remove a cyst, or, we're going to have to give you a partial hysterectomy, or not even tell them or explain to them what's going on. And there were people who underwent ablation and full hysterectomies. They're sterile.
Yeah.
Some women had no idea.
Oh my
I'm literally no idea until they saw another doctor, and they were like, hey, when did you get your full hysterectomy? And they're like, what?
Wow.
So maybe they just got put under and got taken into the... Yeah, I want to go back to the opiate blockers really quickly, because I'm still a little confused on what they are. So they block, if someone takes heroin and they're on an opioid blocker, it blocks the effects of the heroin.
Yes.
So it makes it so they're not high. So then what is the purpose of it? It makes them not want it?
It's like methadone. Yeah, it's supposed to wean your cravings. But from what I understand, the kick, getting off of the Suboxone, is worse than getting off of heroin.
The withdrawal.
I know people that are still having to take a bite of a pill every 2 weeks just to survive. Because it feels like their bones are on fire and they're going to die.
Gosh, yeah. So the withdrawal is worse. Oh my gosh.
Somebody did say, create the problem, then offer the solution.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah,
that's
I think
exactly
so. Yeah.
what's going on. Yes.
That's insane.
So we're seeing, like a mix of drugging them and then to add, that's already a problem, that's already inhumane, and then adding to that biological men who identify as women. And then, like you said, we have a comment that says, wait, are they sterilizing women in prisons? And you're saying sometimes without their consent.
Oh, yeah, because those situations were all without consent. That's why they got the measly $35,000 apiece.
What was the doctor's incentive to do that?
It was just, he was just doing the state a favor by saving them money, because they were going to keep having babies, and then the babies would eventually end up in the system and come to prison anyway. So he was, that was his way of helping California.
Yeah, it just reminds me of, like, I don't know, what the Nazi doctors did on the women, and, just a lot of people in general, but you see how they just were experimenting on the women. And then
it never stopped.
Yeah, and it there's some, there's just some people that are just mentally insane. And I guess we're seeing that, which is insane. Is there any coverage on that either?
I think the LA Times actually covered it.
Okay.
I think there's actually a documentary called Belly of the Beast. And it's really, really, really moving. I mean, I think I cried from the first, when the credits started rolling, till the very end, because it's chronicling a few women's stories, just how robbed they felt, And essentially, no matter what crime a woman's been convicted of, that's nobody's. You can't decide that for them, that they're unworthy of reproducing. It's so inhumane.
Well, it's interesting too, because you notice a lot of patterns from the same administration that's doing these kind of things, like Biden sending in people who send in destructive people who are sending in biological men into the prisons. I mean, you have those same people talking about, they use prisons as talking points all the time, like, people from the right just want to pack the prisons, well, we want to, like, release the prisons. Well, it seems like in a lot of ways they're taking the situation into their own hands by just internally...
Well, and I mean, the first day of his presidency, Biden said, the prison doesn't choose your gender, you do! And, I mean, I'm going to pull that clip because I have to use it very soon, but... that was a huge deal. I was like, no, what do you mean? Because that's going to be abused on so many levels. Just because there's a lot of predatory individuals in the system, and
Yeah.
they need to be cared for as well. You can't put somebody in a position to reoffend. That's not allowing anybody their one most important right to rehabilitate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, would you, okay, so we do have a problem with transgender people going into the women's prisons, or transgender, I guess, men becoming women, or at least saying that they're women. Would you, like, recommend, like, a change to that where it would be specifically, like, just one, I don't know, however, wing side of a prison being specifically for them?
You would think that would be a really good fix, the most logical thing. But the Prison Rape Elimination Act, which was enacted in, I want to say, the Bush administration, this prohibits any segregation or separation based on gender, religion, race. So they're really using that as a reason to not separate people. But the bottom line is they're not transferring because they want to be separated. They want to be in the women's population. There's a handful of post-op trans women who are not posing a huge threat, who are trying to assimilate, and it used to be on a case-by-case basis where they would allow people to come into the female population. But now with this current legislation, it's just anything goes. Anything goes, and it's the legislation was written. They're not taking advantage of this. They're using the law as written because this is how it was designed. And they're above the law. You can't really discipline or penalize, because you'd have to get a letter from like the secretary of the department, and you have to explain to them in writing exactly why you say no for anything. And cops aren't in the mood to do any paperwork as it is. So they're not going to write a book report on why they don't want to move you in the room with somebody you're going to assault. They're just not.
Oh, man.
Right, so it's a lot of, I guess it's a lot of laziness on that part then.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure it is extremely hard, though, to get that.
Well, their hands are kind of tied. The way the law is written, there's kind of nothing that the staff can do.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to segue, too, into your personal perspective. And can you tell us a bit about your story?
Sure. It was 2009, and gas prices were so high. No, not to minimize the commission of my crime. I was selling drugs on the weekend, and I got mixed up in a really toxic relationship, and that's how almost everybody's story starts in women's prison. There was this guy, and within 6 months of meeting this person, I was arrested for kidnapping for ransom, for false imprisonment. It was a really long list of felonies. It was a drug deal gone wrong, over $20. And, I just wasn't going to go to prison for murder. So I said, we're going to take this young lady home now. And we did, and the cops were waiting there. So I was arrested. I think I just turned 24. And, next thing I knew, I was fighting 25 to life. And my dad was an active sheriff at the time. So I, really put my family through a lot of stuff. But they were, supportive, wrote it out. And, it was the first time I'd been arrested or ever been in a courthouse without it being take our daughters to work day. So it was a pretty eye-opening experience, but it was much needed, and if I could change anything about it other than traumatizing my victim, I would have stayed longer, because it saved my life. If I wouldn't have gone to prison, I wouldn't be here now, I don't think. So what I'm doing is really the best way I know how to pay back the women who helped me learn what being a woman is about. It took 5 years of people, really drilling it into my head that you're not a bank. If a boy doesn't touch you, he doesn't like you. If they only talk to you on payday, they're not your boyfriend. I just needed like an intense one-on-one, crash course on reality. And I had to have it in that setting because I was so reckless. I wouldn't have been able to receive the information and process any other way, I don't think.
Yeah.
And I know that your organization is Christian, right? So did you find what's your life story with Christ?
Well, I always knew Jesus. Grew up in Sunday school, but it wasn't until very recently that I was like, oh man, I really need the Lord. And I was mad at myself because I hadn't, I felt like I used the Lord to get through my time and then kind of dumped him. So, we're going through the motions with the organization, and I was like, you know what? I skipped a part, and I forgot we need to make the Lord the cornerstone of the organization. Let's start over. Let's rededicate. Let's establish that we're faith-based. And my two partners were like, yeah. So that was a good sign. And then I tried to open a checking account.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to bank with us. And I was like, God, isn't there a Christian bank or something?
Oh.
And I found a Christian credit union. Yeah. And they asked, well, what's your statement of faith? I said, well, I don't know. They said, well, read ours and send us one. I said, oh, I'm on it. So I wrote one. I sent it to my partners, and they were like, it's perfect. I said, oh, all right. So I turned that in, and they said, well, what are your values? What's your beliefs? And I was like, oh, come on, man.
Really, I got to pull everything out.
And then I thought, well, if I got to do all this, it must be worth it,
Yeah.
And they've been very kind to us. And, it really helped us lock it in and establish that we don't just want to offer people regular services. We want to offer you, like, full services. I don't want to just save you from a life sentence. I would like to help save your soul too. We're gonna help everybody. Anybody who comes and calls us, knocks on the door, whatever, they'll get help. If we can't offer it, we'll send them to someplace that does.
It's kind of that thing that you said of you needed those hard lessons, you needed those harsh realities. It's like, would you say that it's like you're trying to give that to women who either have been incarcerated or not been incarcerated?
Right. And the truth, something that has to be reality based, and the truth, like, we're really big on accountability and responsibility, and that's something that I don't know if it's nationwide, but here in California it's definitely not popular.
No.
It's everyone else's fault.
Yes.
I am a victim. No, I have a victim. And we want to move with respect to the traumas we've caused while, still healing from our own traumas, but not absolving ourselves from, the crimes we committed or the impact we had on other people's lives. And that's why my partners are amazing, because I don't know a whole lot of other people in our community that feel the same way, or at least in action show that that's what they're about. So it's great. Yeah.
What do you think the biggest, most powerful positive impact of personal accountability is in women? Let's just say in women. We'll narrow it down.
Well, personal accountability, it's taking the responsibility for your actions and really being able to start the healing process, because if you don't have the accountability for whatever got you in prison in the first place, it's how are you going to prevent that from happening again? How are you going to stop yourself from returning if there's no connection to what happened and there's no process of working through it? How did I get here? Why did this happen? How do I prevent this from ever happening again? I'm sorry. All those feelings that are constantly overlooked by the money pit NGOs. It's very Marxist and anti-accountability in the other arenas.
Yeah, one of the things I love that you said was that most of the women in prison would explain how they got there, and they were like, there was this guy, and then I got dragged into stuff. And even with that, there's personal accountability, because it's like, even that sentence, a lot of women can't even bring themselves to that, because then it's on the guy. It's not their fault.
But it's amazing to be able to be a part of somebody's aha moment when they're like, oh no. Like this is kind of sad, but it's beautiful at the same time. There's a woman who's her ex-husband beat their infants to death.
Oh my God.
About a year apart. And she was like, well, why do I have to go to these classes, and why do I have to sit here with these baby cases, with these women that off their own children? And I was like, come on, you can do this. And it took her a few months, and she wrote me a message, and I was just crying the whole time. And she said, oh my gosh, I totally contributed to the death of my children because I didn't stop it. I didn't do anything. So that is the part I played. I didn't do anything, and my inaction contributed to the death of my kids. And I was like, you did it.
Yeah.
It was like I was physically seeing her fight her own demons in this message.
Yeah.
And it was so special.
It's so true. When we are fighting demons like that, especially when there's a horrible situation like that, it's so easy to, because I go to AA, I go to CR, I go to Celebrate Recovery. I've been in those programs a while now, maybe like 5 years or something. But it's just like, that is like the theme of those. That is the theme of those meetings, is, you have fair pain, you have unfair pain, In your fair pain, like, let's talk about your fair pain, And one thing I love about, AA is you go back, it takes you back to stuff like unfair pain that happened when you were like 7 years old, and you have to look at it and be like, oh my, it's like the children are born innocent, not good. And even going back, but a lot of people don't like to think about that. Right. Even when you go back to there's even a part, because we don't like to think that, because we're like, well, that's victim blaming. We just go, no, that's victim blaming. We're not going to do that. But it's like, no, it's our sinful nature. And
but then you have to acknowledge that there's sin too, and people aren't really into that right now either.
No,
we're so far removed as a society from that. That it's moved into something that's really not so great.
Oh, yeah.
And it really had an impact, I think, on people's ability to rehabilitate. It's probably why there's 96,000 people in California state prisons.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
But I still have so much hope. There's so much change, and I think that the place where it's really going to kick off is inside, and it's going to spread once, I'm taking their playbook and I'm doing the opposite.
Can you tell us about the playbook and about just the details about?
Well, a lot of politicians use prison, and lawyers and law firms use the prison. This is their playground. This is where they start their projects. And for example, not a lot of people, and I don't blame them, pay attention to lawsuits that are going on with prisoners, because who cares in general? But what's happening is these cases that nobody's paying attention to are establishing case law that will be used in the free world in bigger cases, huge cases, settlements, payouts. So the law is already established, and it's an easy win, because I was doing all this. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
lawfare.
That's what's happening. I'm trying to get hip to it. And what else? How else is this? They're using, like I said, this is ground zero for socioeconomic testing. It's such a controlled community and test subject that they can do anything, the medical testing, all that kind of stuff. So I figure if this is ground zero and this is so important here, if I start movements within that are positive, maybe it'll have the reverse ripple effect, I'm pretty sure.
And can you tell us the name and just above the ministry. Is it a ministry?
I believe it is. I feel like confident that we can say it's a ministry now.
And
before, probably not. But
What's the name of it? And how
it's
can
woman
people?
to woman. It's woman to woman.
Woman to woman.
Our website's www.womaniwoman.org. I like Roman numerals.
Yeah. And can you tell us, like, what's a lot of on the ground, like on the field work that Woman to Woman is doing?
Well, this is probably going to sound like it's not a big deal, but the peer support is so important right now because of the culture climate in the prison. We're really focused on encouraging the female population, because once they remember that they are valuable, that they do have societal value, no matter what, they'll start investing in themselves, filing complaints, standing up for themselves, because nobody's coming. There's no white horses. There's no heroes. Nobody's coming. They're going to have to value themselves and stand up for themselves. And it's hard if you've been told you don't matter for so many years.
You're not taught.
You don't matter. Shut up. Yeah, we're going to put these condom dispensers in here, and you're not going to do anything about it. So we're trying to.
Oh my gosh, they put condom dispensers in the women's prison?
On Super Bowl Sunday, day where nobody really goes to work, they worked overtime to install them in every unit. And it's not just like regular condoms. They're rainbow, and they threw, flavored dental dams in there too. And there was never any dental. There's been women in the prison since it was built, and there was never the provision of dental dams. So it was just overall insulting and humiliating. And
absolutely, because the implication is, well, first of all, they're sending biological men there, so that's one, and then they don't want any babies from that, right? And
but
then
there are.
There are still babies.
Well, there is actually a question there that says, what do they do if a female inmate becomes pregnant?
Well, they actually put up posters in the medical units that say, options should you become pregnant during your incarceration. Option 1 is a Plan B pill. Option 2 is abortion. 3 is connection with the social worker to start the adoption out process. There's 16 women pregnant right now. I don't know if...
Where at?
They're all in CIW, because California Institution for Women is where anyone pregnant is sent for security purposes. I can't prove that those are from transfers from the men's prison, but they can't disprove it.
Yeah. And then there's also just the, guards and that kind of stuff that,
And that happens too. But this, there was a situation in 2021 that my phone was ringing. I thought it was going to explode because the investigative services unit brought the dogs out and shovels because they were looking for fetal remains, because they had received reports that there was a miscarriage because somebody had beat their girlfriend until she miscarried.
Wow.
It was probably a guard. No, it was a
person who transferred from the men's prison.
Was a biological man who went into, so this happened in 2021, a biological man identified as a woman got sent to the women's prison, got a woman pregnant, and then beat her, and then they buried the fetus remains
allegedly
in the yard.
But that investigation was unsubstantiated. But regardless of whether or not it was substantiated, the fact that they still had to do that, period, is unacceptable.
Right.
I mean, every woman is like standing and looking out the window like, oh my God.
It just became more plausible.
And that individual was actually just sent back to a men's facility on March 6th because the DA just charged them with 2 counts of forcible rape and dissuading a witness. So this person, they knew this person was a problem for a long time.
Yeah.
And they just did nothing about it. Wow. A lot of things people don't act until it becomes like a very huge thing they can't ignore.
I think there's a reluctance by the higher ups because they're more concerned about their pensions and their retirement than women's safety or well-being. It's more important to keep their positions and continue to get paid than to prevent further traumatization of this whole marginalized population of forgotten women.
Yeah. And forgotten fetuses, too.
Really. And I mean, there's somebody, I think she's about to have a baby right now, and by the same person.
Oh, my gosh.
And, you know, I'm going to court for this individual next month, and it's taken a long time for me to get to this point, but I'm going to court for that person just as much as I am for the victims.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's really uncomfortable, but somebody's got to care about that person, too.
Yeah.
Because this wouldn't have happened if this law wouldn't have been so hatefully written, and he was provided this opportunity. It was handed to this person. So can't be too mad at the predator for doing predatory things.
But you can look at the administration and say, are you kidding me? You created a situation where a completely vulnerable woman got R-worded by a biological male, and now she's facing a pregnancy in prison. Yeah.
That's crazy.
But it's more than crazy. It's just disgusting. And the fact that nobody talks about it is just even more, it's just so disconcerting. I mean, and then even the fact that we see traces of it all over the school system.
And that school to prison pipeline, they're streamlining it with this stuff like that.
Interesting. Wow.
The push to remove parental rights and notifications is, from what I see, a definite move in streamlining this pipeline. Everybody I met in prison would have loved to have parents who were able to be involved in their lives.
Yeah.
Further dividing the remnant of the family unit is not helpful. This isn't helpful at all. There's legislators that are saying there's proof and studies that show that children that are forcibly outed get beaten. Where are these studies?
Yeah.
I read a lot. I do a lot of research and haven't seen any studies that show parents are beating their kids if they're, gender confused or.
Yeah. Or another one I hear is that, they're getting bullied by other students if they and then they might commit suicide. And
and that's
the fear of suicide is where a lot of this
spikes after transition.
It's
a spike afterwards because none of the root issues are being addressed. There's no mental health services that are paired with these transgender healthcare services. They're not dealing with what the kids are really struggling with.
Yeah.
And I saw that off top because I had a lot of identity issues growing up. I didn't have strong, cultural ties, and I didn't fit in anywhere, so I just bounced around from race to race, gang to gang, and ended up gang banging for Jesus. But these,
there you go. Amen.
These kids, they have nothing to feel special about, so they're running to this community, and they're very welcoming.
Yeah,
they're nice. So
do you do any education for kids?
We've never really explored that, but I think it'd be bad if I thought of you guys as kids.
The younger part.
No, it's all good.
But woman to woman, I mean, it's in the name. It sounds like more counsel to women who have. Do you more? Does woman to woman ever approach women who are not incarcerated yet?
Yeah,
like
so
just.
You know what? I think the opportunities are brewing for us to start working with women in county jails too, because if we could get to that point and help people who are on their way up there, hey, your rehabilitation starts right now, your program starts right now, or women who are just in and out and haven't done anything that's going to earn prison time yet, I think it would be much more impactful. And I mean, we deal with families too, because there's not a lot of guidance, and people are spread thin. So we just make ourselves available. People's kids are, they need help. They have birthdays. They get forgotten, not on purpose, but it's hard. Right. So we try and bridge those gaps whenever possible.
Absolutely.
What are some of the other services that you do provide?
If you need a ride home, we'll go pick you up. Not that, that happens a lot, but
that's a big, the not getting a ride home thing.
And
talk about our word. Yeah. Well, that's how it started.
That's how the ride home thing started. Somebody contacted me and said, "Hey, one of my friends was found, or she's going to be coming home soon. She got a date. Can you help her get a ride home?" Because the gas prices were really high. It's always these high gas prices, right? And her people were all the way in San Diego, and Chowchilla's in Madera. It's pretty far. It's in nowhere lands, right? Yeah. So I was connecting her with a larger organization, and you had to fill out this whole packet, and there were so many questions like, well, what is this? Sounds like you're making a movie script out of this application. What is this? And, we talked a couple days before she was going to be released, and she said, do you think you could please do me a favor and ask them if a woman could pick me up, because I'm going to be nervous. It's been 17 years since I've been alone with a man, and I just said, no, I'll see you on Monday. And that's how we started. And we're ready. We want that to be something that happens all the time. We want to get tired of doing it because people are coming home. We'll also help women who are sentenced to life or life without the possibility of parole with commutations, board preparation. If you don't have a team working for you, it's really hard to get the things that you need to be adequately prepared for board. We'll go to full board hearings where we can testify or provide public comment, and legal services if there's something going on, or as a kind of a liaison if women are afraid to make complaints or to file reports. If they want us to, we'll go ahead and do it. They're probably tired of hearing about us. But that's basically what we want to do so much more, and eventually we will. We have a really stellar newsletter that goes out as often as possible, and we try and fill it with encouraging things, policy updates. We have a postcard campaign where one of my partners provides grounding techniques and things that can help you in the moment, because mental health services are definitely subpar in there. So in times of need, they're just look at their postcards and remember, got to do this breathing, or I got to count and do this, because there's times when daily, sometimes you're going to flip out, or it's going to be hard, and you don't have a resource, so we try and provide that.
I was going to ask, mental health, you do to help with that a lot, then I'm guessing.
Yes, and we absorb a lot of it, so a lot of in a lot of ways we have the complex PTSD, because it's like we're still in there. I didn't know. I had no idea. I was telling one of my partners, hey, I got driver's Parkinson's. She said, what? I said, every time I get on the freeway, I shake, and I feel like I start shaking. And she was like, that is PTSD? I said, well, from what? She said, well, prison. And I was like, what? Because this is 5 years after I had already been home. And I thought about it. I was like, wow, this sucks.
It's like,
are you kidding me? It takes sometimes it takes years for the symptoms to start showing, but being so deeply engrossed in the issues that are happening inside, it's definitely taken a toll. We have to remind each other regularly to take care of ourselves, and hey, today is a day off.
Right, take a mental break. Make sure that you're doing well. That's
it's
so
hard.
important.
It's hard.
Yeah, I'm sure it very much is, but I'm sure that church has definitely been, or at least your relationship with Christ, has that definitely helped you?
Yeah. And then, we keep track of prayers. I have this prayer tracker, because life happens so fast. I
Yeah.
want to be able to reflect, and in hard times, we need to be reminded, like, whoa, well, that was miracle season. You know?
Yeah. So
Because
true.
awesome stuff has really happened in the midst of all this. There's been so many prayers answered, and then there's times where I'll be speechless because I'm living in a moment that, wow,
Yeah.
remember when we prayed for this?
Right.
It's awesome. I was just in a meeting with somebody from the Judiciary Committee, the Senate Judiciary Committee, and one of my good friends who had life without the possibility of parole is in the meeting too, and I just stopped and I looked at her and I was like, I probably zoned out for a good minute. I probably thought I was losing it or, glitching or something. And I was like, oh my gosh, we used to sit on the yard and say that this exactly, we would pray for this moment that's happening right now. And it just was I was so overwhelmed with, wow, thank you so much. And I need those reminders, to remind me that this is the right direction, we're doing the right thing, because it does get it gets exhausting.
Thank you, Jesus. Yeah.
Right. Have a snack, take a nap, you're gonna be all right.
Yeah, exactly. It's so true.
Well, I did have to see how much. We are going to wrap up pretty soon, but I did have I guess another question about like just some more of positive stories that you've been hearing. I mean, one of them is that one, but what are some other ones that come to mind that you're like, wow, this has been really like a complete change?
In my own, there's something we had been there's some really bad stuff happening in the federal prisons. Really, really, really demented. Like, if you thought what I was talking about was bad, this is just deplorable, just unbelievable. And, we've been praying. Oh, man, just the really bad stuff. I mean, there's people... actually, in the prison where Sarah Netburn sent that individual, there were a lot of essays that took place that were heinous, and one woman ended up disfigured, and she's not okay. She's not going to be okay. They had to put her back together again, and it seemed pretty hopeless because they're not giving her help medically. There's it's just totally inhumane. And all of a sudden, I got a call from this lawyer in Arkansas, and he said, "Hi, I understand you need help." And I was like, I started like sobbing, and he said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, because I automatically knew, oh my gosh, he's calling for this situation. And he went out to go see her. And I just...
Do they know who did this to this particular woman? Was it a guard, or was it one of these biological males who's in there?
It was another prisoner.
Was it a woman, or?
It's a woman on testosterone.
Wow.
Whoa.
So, there's a trend. There's a lot of that's becoming more apparent that this doesn't agree with everybody. This doesn't really process well in everybody's body.
Right.
It's dangerous.
It just goes so far against nature.
Especially when there's no adequate mental health care services being paired with this kind of stuff.
Wow, that's a really good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, even these men who are being put in women's prisons, I mean, you have to look at them too and think,
where's their trauma?
Yeah, where's their trauma? And now they're being put in a situation where they've already shown they have lack of self-control. Now they're being put around other women
to reoffend.
Yeah, and then it's like, are you trying to get you're just tempting this guy now? I mean, it's state sanctioned rape. They're putting They're putting people in the position to they're causing this. They're complicit in these crimes against women and the abandonment of these men. Nobody cares about the childhood traumas that they
underwent. Why isn't anybody dealing with that or addressing that issue and helping them heal?
They're saying, nope, you're a woman.
Yeah.
Go join the women and have fun.
There's
Yeah,
some
exactly.
condoms helping them heal.
They're saying, nope, you're a woman.
Yeah.
Go join the women. Condoms in there.
Maybe something more positive. Yes.
Well, yes,
Oh,
I have
happy.
something happy.
No.
Sorry, what happened?
No, well, the Arkansas.
Arkansas was so awesome.
Well, yeah.
But it's still a roller coaster.
Yeah.
But, I know I'm not in charge, thank God. And our battles are won, so I just have to continually show up every day and lead by example and remind people that, the hard part's over. We just got to be there.
Yeah.
We just got to keep showing up.
So I'm curious, too, you said that multiple people contact you when they see a case like this with a really troubled woman. Are they contacting woman to woman?
Mm-hmm. Well, because we don't have any funding, so my cell phone number is the organization number, so I always answer.
But word's gotten out, and you're being contacted.
I mean, I have, lost a lot of sleep. So this actually, it was really amazing how this happened. It was like the Alliance Defending Freedom had contacted like the First Liberty contact, and then ended up contacting me, and I was like, well, what did they tell you to call me for?
Yeah.
But because that's the way it was supposed to happen.
That's amazing.
That's the way it was meant to be. And
yeah. Well, a small, organization that was just hands-on, like they're there, they're in person, they treat people as like individuals, like this is a case by case, it's all individual, rather than just like trying to put a solution on a whole entire problem. No, it's like these are individual cases. An organization like that helped me when I became a mom at 18. So I cannot say enough positive things about what you're doing with woman to woman, because I've been on the other side of experiencing the blessings of an actual human connection based organization that actually does help women, and the impact of it is huge. It's frankly, it's just as big as any giant organization could give, because I see you. I see you.
It's that humanization. Like I love you.
Yeah.
And that's
I relate to you. Yes.
I get asked all the time, like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Because I love them.
Yeah.
I love
That's
them.
incredible. That's incredible. And so how do women, if a woman wants to get involved with woman to woman and go help incarcerated women and these lost women, what do they do?
Well, I know this sounds like it's not that important, but raising awareness is vital at this point. Helping the general public understand what's happening,
the
that
intensity,
one conversation or the share of that one post or that one interview or that one Shift 180 episode, that's what it's going to take to get people to care. Because once, like, especially with your generation, I knew that once you were informed, you would care. And people can't care about what they don't know about. So the sharing of factually based information with citations is vital, because people have to know this is what's being pushed by the current administration. This is what you need to make sure your elected officials aren't in full support of.
Yeah. And it's being glamorized by our culture. I mean, when we were talking about trans women in prison, the first
it's not Laverne Cox.
Yeah, is that the lady? I don't know.
It's not
Orange
that
is the New
one.
Black?
It's not actually nope.
Like, remember Orange is the New Black with the
But that was a psyop. That was totally soft programming to prepare people for this, because the ACLU trans man lawyer took Laverne Cox to the Emmys. Like, they're buddy. This is all part of a plan.
Well, and you watch that show and you're like, this person is completely harmless.
Yes, just needs hormones and is being abused. No.
That's not the reality of it.
Right.
Yeah.
But that was how they were preparing people to widely accept this.
And that's why shedding light on it is so important. Shedding light on the damage and the intense vulgarity of sending biological men who identify as women into female prisons, and the actual effect it has on women. Shedding the light on that is huge, because you're right, it does activate people. They're
it's affecting every single woman. Like, staff are required, if it's your post, to do cavity searches. That's your job.
Yeah.
Female, woman, you are going to strip this male-bodied individual out. And if they get excited during the strip out, do your job, be quiet.
Yeah.
So this is an assault on every kind of woman, every color, every rank, every value in the system.
Yeah.
All of us are under assault.
Yeah.
And I always try and remind people what's happening to them inside is happening to us too, because if we don't stop it, that's our destiny, that's our future. Wow. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I love what you're doing with Woman to Woman. Honestly, I mean that's incredible. That's huge. Yeah, that's huge.
Honestly, that brought so much light into, like, I had no idea this was going on. So just opening my eyes to understanding that this is a problem. And, I think oftentimes we don't think about the women in prisons, right?
Right.
Because, obviously you sort of write them off, well, they did something, and then you don't actually think that these are actual women who are humans just like us. They've got issues just like us, right? And they're just being overlooked.
Completely.
Wow. That's insane, but
I am curious too, just on another, like, positive note. I don't know. But, what's your approach to a woman who, let's say, just cannot get out of her victim mentality, cannot see truth because she's so far in denial? Like, what's your...
Or she's been captivated by the Marxist agenda.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Plant seeds, like Johnny Appleseed will plant seeds, pray on it, and hope for the best, and move on, because there's so many. And we stay in contact. I'm not going to write anybody off. I had talked to like 200 people.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah.
But I know from my own personal experience, that thought has to genuinely grow in my head.
Yes.
In order for me to organically really make that change or believe that thing. Mm-hmm. So planting seeds and letting it germinate, having to be patient, which is a problem, is like the most important thing ever.
Right, kind of letting God's work in their own heart, right?
Yeah. And part of that is kind of letting go,
Yeah, that can definitely be hard.
Yeah,
it's so hard.
Prodigal daughters. Yeah,
those control issues are real.
Yeah. And then we got codependency in there too.
Oh, so much.
Yeah.
Big component there.
I can't be happy unless you're happy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Are you better? Are you okay?
Are you okay? 'Cause I'm not okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
You too?
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah.
It's exhausting.
It really is. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, we have your website pinned in the comments. It's been pinned there for a while now, and go to that website, everyone. Woman to Woman, they do hands-on, on the field help, counseling. They give resources to women who have been incarcerated. And my goodness, has the battle gotten bigger now that biological men are being sent into women's prisons, and there already are sexual assault cases, pregnancies, and violence against women from biological men. Yes, you heard me right. Biological men being sent into women's prisons left and right, abusing and sexually assaulting the women in those prisons, all because they said they were a male. That's all they had to do. Or
no,
female. They said they were a female. They said they were a female.
They can even say, they could say they're non-binary. They could say they're two-spirit. They could say they're anything other than what's on their birth certificate. You could be like, I'm fluid. It's just whatever you want, basically.
Yeah.
Whatever you feel like that today.
Yeah.
Do what thou wilt. It's just a super...
Well, we need, we need to shed light on this issue because, we're seeing it in schools, we're seeing it in sports, and guess what, guys? It's happening in prisons, too, and it's getting pretty disturbing.
And there's, the best place where you can get like a really, really clear picture into what's going on is the Independent Women's Forum has a docuseries that they did with me and a couple of my peers and staff. Actually, it's called "Cruel and Unusual Punishment: The Male Takeover of Women's Prisons," and it's been like I'm like, wow, they did us justice. They really did us justice.
Where can we find it?
If you go to YouTube and just look up Independent Women's Forum, it's I think it's still hitting. It's still, getting a lot of action. There's
Independent Women's Forum. Okay.
That's which I mean, it was just really well done. We got a resigned staff who, is a total hero. There's a new episode that's going to be released soon, and it's with a retired LA County sheriff and FBI expert on the Mexican mafia, who's shedding a lot of light on specific individuals that are currently in the women's facility.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So once I Googled Independent Women's Forum, it came up. I went to their YouTube, and I have the Cruel and Unusual Punishment up here now. So if you want to learn more about what's happening in women's prisons right now, and just the attack on females in our country, you can look that up and do some more research on that.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Honestly, I'm telling you, it's been such an eye-opener.
Yeah, such an honor having you here. Yeah.
I didn't know this was so much of a problem, and thank you so much for all the work you've done.
Thank you.
This is amazing. I really do want to, continue to support you guys. Definitely going to be praying for you guys.
And you've activated us.
Yeah.
You've activated us.
Seriously.
I think prayer is the most important thing that anybody can do for us right now. Because this is spiritual warfare,
that's so true.
Full on.
Yep.
But thank you both very much.
Is there an Instagram? Or do you guys have socials?
Yes, there is. Woman, Woman, INC on Instagram. Same on X and TikTok as well. Facebook. It's all the same handle on every platform.
Amazing. Okay, thank you so much for coming on again. It's been such a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. Okay, you guys are totally refreshing.
Yes.
So are you.
Now, I don't know. Can I make an announcement real quick?
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so for those of you who joined us last week, know Max. He was one of our guests, and he's actually has been on here twice now. He did talk about his first comic. He's about to come out with a second, but he's definitely needing some help. So if you guys can go out there and go to Kickstarter, it's listed under Atlas Comic. And he has it all there, so you guys can go support him. If you really liked him last week, you can go find the personal episode we did with just him. It was like towards our beginning, and you can find out about his comic. He's pretty cool, 17 years old, and did an independent comic, so go support him if you can.
And it's called, I'm looking it up right now, it's called Atlas. How do you spell it?
Atlas Comic. So ATLAS and then comic. So
Atlas.
Yeah, Atlas.
Whoops. Atlas Comic. Okay.
Yep, there it is. Well, thank you so much, guys, for joining us. It has definitely been a pleasure to have everybody come with us. Next week, we're going to have a really good episode. Tara won't be here, unfortunately, but I will be here to keep you guys posted.
Yes, thank you, Ellie. I won't be here for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to be in Colorado, but I'll be back.
You'll have fun at a wedding, right?
Yes, I'm going to my cousin's wedding.
Nice.
So I'm excited.
I feel like everybody's going to weddings. My friend just went to Maine for 2 weeks for a wedding for her own cousin.
Yes.
So, like, everybody's going off. But, yeah. But thank you so much for joining us, and catch us back here next week. Thank you, guys.